أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين. Beloved brothers and sisters, I hope everybody's having a blessed time in these days of Dhul Hijjah. I hope all of our deeds are accepted and we grow in our spirituality. Continuing on the discussion about Abraham, peace and blessings be upon him. This series that we've been going over the last few days is about how we can fulfill the divine command, ittabi' millata Ibrahim, that follow the religion, follow the path of spirituality that Abraham led. Peace and blessings be upon him. So today our main focus is going to be upon how Abraham was a rational thinker. He was one that was rooted in intellectual spirituality. We see so many examples. Already we've talked about some of them, that he was, as a child, he was very clever as a young boy, to relate the true beliefs and the true religion and the truth of God and his nature using rational points about, these statues, look at them, you made them, they don't hear and see, they don't have any power. If I destroy them, they can't defend themselves. Look at the sun and the moon and the planets, how they come and go and they move around and they seem to have limited capacity. And so, what about the one who created everything, who is the controller of all things, that is not subject to change and moving here and there and all of that? So, today we're going to talk about two verses that really emphasize and bring home this point. One is from Surah Al-Baqarah. They're both right there from the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, verses number 258 and 260. ألم تر إلى الذي حاج إبراهيم في ربه أن آتاه الله الملك. Do you know the story of the one who was given wealth by Allah, one who was given authority and power, the king? Many of the scholars have pinpointed him as a King Nimrod, that he challenged Abraham in his beliefs and his claim that he's sent by his nurturing Lord who has the power and dominion of everything. And so that makes Abraham special, and that threatens the king's authority. So he's heard some stories about Abraham and he wants to try to challenge him. And so, إِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّيَ الَّذِي يُحْيِي وَيُمِيتُ. And so Abraham told him, my Lord, my nurturing sustainer, is the one who causes life to exist. Literally is the meaning here. He gives life and causes it to exist. And he is the one who will cause death. And so quickly Nimrod thought about what he said, and he has a very quick answer. قَالَ أَنَا أُحْيِي وَأُمِيتُ. So then the response is, not that I am the one who, but I also have the same quality as your Lord that you are claiming. I can give life and give death. And so the commentators have some historical reference where they put that he brought out two people from the jail. They were both expected to have death as their penalty. So one of them, he had him killed right there. He says, see, I've caused this one to die. And the other one, he let him free and gave him wealth. And so he says, I caused him to live. Now here you can see that Abraham can really dig deeper philosophically if he wants to about what it means to bring life into existence or cause life or to cause death, and the fact that God is actually the one who's doing this, even though he's allowing the guy to have free will, but he is allowing him to do the things that he would like. He could go into all of that, but Abraham does not do that. قال إبراهيم فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأت بها من المغرب. So then Abraham, he transitions into a different subject. And so he says, my Lord is the one who causes the sun to come up from the east. So how about you cause the sun to come up from the west? So he sat there and thought for a moment. فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. And the person who has rejected God and challenged God, he was confused and had nothing to say. He had no way to argue, and he knows that there is some reason why the sun comes up the way it does, but he has no authority over that. And so he finds himself in a position to rethink his own beliefs. Wallahu la yahdi al-qawm al-zalimin. God will not guide an oppressive people. So, as we said, one of the lessons we learned is that getting into arguments um, rather than making the point in a better way. So Abraham here, peace and blessings be upon him, he doesn't try to argue out the issue. He tries to change it to another issue relevant to the same discussion so that he will find something that's easier to relate to or easier to grasp and harder to be in conflict. Something that will leave the person no choice other than concordance to accept the truth. And so that's the wisdom of how to deal with people. And it is a very well thought out process, a very rational. Because you may have a lot of knowledge, but if you don't have the ability to understand how to impart knowledge or what knowledge has priority, what we call wisdom, then you'll find yourself in a lot of problems. And we all have room to grow on that. And so the next point is that he wanted to make sure that there was something beyond argument here, something that could be just agreed upon, right? And that's another thing, finding room that we can all overlap and we can agree. So the next one is two verses later. It's verse number 260, and it's basically now Abraham is going to challenge God to help him to grow spiritually so that he can have certainty and his heart can be at ease with his understanding of the hereafter. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Literally, what it says is, tell the people, remember the story when Abraham called out to his Lord, "Oh my Lord, show me how you revive the dead after it has been dead and give life to it again, how you will resurrect people on the day of judgment." So, of course, Abraham, he believes this because Allah asked him, قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. So God asks Abraham, and it's interesting because obviously God knows what Abraham believes and what's in his heart, but he's allowing him to work this thing out about how to express it. So he says, do you not believe that I will resurrect things in the hereafter and people will come up out of their grave? He said, of course I believe. But my purpose here of asking you, I want a sense of peace of heart, peace of mind. I want to be sure about how this works. I want you to give me clear evidence. And so, we find Abraham now here asking for a sign, some proof of this. قال فخذ أربعة من الطير فصرهن إليك ثم اجعل على كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعهن يأتينك سعيا واعلم أن الله عزيز حكيم. So here he says, go ahead, find 4 birds, slaughter them, cut them up into the pieces after you slaughter them, and then mix up the pieces and take this bunch of pieces and put them on the tip of this mountain, take these pieces, put them on the top of that mountain, and so forth. So you have now different places on the mountain with different piles of cut up, slaughtered birds. And then call them, and they will come back to you. And so then he did exactly as Allah told him. He called upon the birds, and then here these birds come back to him. These 4 birds come back to him as he saw them in the beginning before he slaughtered them, and they're alive and chirping and everything. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. Know that God is mighty, full of wisdom, and that he can do anything, and that his abilities are something that are beyond anything that we could actually rationally grasp. You see? So Abraham, he's asking questions to grow in his certainty as a believer. So we should say, is there a problem if we ask an imam or our children ask us about things seemingly doubting? Like, why do we believe that? Why did it say that in the ayah? Why does this hadith say this? Why should we believe that? Should we tell people believe because we said so? Or how dare you challenge belief? Should we be that way? Have you seen Muslims acting that way? Imams, parents, and others? Unfortunately, that is not the way. What we should do is find the evidence and present it to people. We should we should welcome people seeking certainty, seeking a basis, a foundation for their beliefs. This is what Abraham and his interaction with Allah here tells us. So the basis for his question obviously is it's hard to imagine that something withers away to bones and then somehow it comes back up. Like it's he's of course God said so and he believes and he's a prophet. But just as we doubt things as a believer and a prophet, Abraham was doubting how that actually works and he wanted to put it together. Somebody might say, "How dare you say Abraham doubted?" Just read the ayah. I know we are kind of hammered into our ideas that this is how it should be. This is what a prophet is. This is what it means. And we get these ideas hammered into us, but we do it without reading Quran. We just hear people saying things about how we should think and how we should believe, and we don't actually take our beliefs from the Quran and how we should function from the Quran. So I think a big lesson here is he wasn't, again, too shy to ask a tough question to the ultimate authority in reality. So some people feel like I should be shy to ask the Imam, why do we do this? Why do we believe that? Why did you teach this thing? Where did that idea come from? What is that fatwa? What's the basis for it? What's the hadith? There's actually everyone should do that to every teacher and every parent and every person. And we should either be ready to be humble and say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that. Let's go find it and seek the evidence just like Abraham did. Find the evidence for it. And what I found in my 20 years as a Muslim and as a student of the sacred sciences, many times I find myself doubting an issue and confused about it. And then I'll study and I'll ask this sheikh and that sheikh and I'll study this book and that book. And then I'll be like, wow, finally I come to an amazing, clear answer. And so this is the beauty of the richness of Islam. There will be an answer somewhere that will make sense. We are a rational, spiritual people. We are following the Abrahamic way. And so, as followers of Abraham, we must become intellectual in our spirituality. We have to sit down and study the scripture. We have to come together as groups in the mosque, as youth groups, as adult groups, as senior groups, as families, as young professionals. We have to come together and study what scripture says and actualize our faith into concrete foundation of certainty. And that's why we're now going to be working a lot with the Yaqeen Institute. Dr. Omar Suleiman has put together an amazing team and funded some amazing work in the field of dispelling doubts and establishing certainty in the hearts and minds of the believers and giving us the ability to be confident in who we are and what we believe, as well as how we can convey the message and how we can spread it to the world. So may Allah bless us to become those rational, intellectual, spiritual people whose religiosity is rooted in knowledge and evidence, whose ability to convey Islam to others is rooted in a clarity of understanding and wisdom that we find in the scripture. Jazakumullah khairan, subhanakallah bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.